So there are quite a few of these little retro handheld devices being released. This one here, this is the Anbernic RG353M. Now, Anbernic has been releasing retro handhelds for quite a bit now, and this is one of their newer releases. I picked this one up about a month ago, and I've been playing around with it, and I wanted to give my 2 cents on it. I will tell you this, that this is one of the best retro handhelds I've ever used. I've been using these for a while. I picked this one up to replace my much older Anbernic RG350, and this thing served me pretty well. It's pretty well built at the time, emulates up to PS1, and I wanted something with a little bit more power, so I opted for the all metal build, and I do not regret it. This thing is premium. It's portable. It has all the bells and whistles you want on something this portable. Comes in at a bit higher price than the other versions of this that Anbernic has released, but I think it's worth it. I'm going to take a look at the design of this thing, take a look at some of the inputs, open it up, give it a little bit of a teardown and see how moddable this thing is as well. And then we're going to do a bit of emulation in here and see what this thing is capable of. Anyway, thanks for joining me, and this is the review of the Anbernic RG353M. So, taking a look at some of the specs for this thing comes with the popular RK3566 CPU. What that means in the real world is you will be able to play up to Dreamcast emulation, maybe a bit of PSP as well. It has 2 gigs of LDDR RAM, 32 gigs of eMMC memory for the Android side of things, a 2.4 and 5 GHz Wi-Fi chip, as well as a Bluetooth 4.2 chip in there. It comes with a 3.5-inch IPS multi-touch display running at a resolution of 640 by 480, and it looks pretty sharp. This also has a 3500 mAh battery, which Anbernic claims to give you about 7 hours of battery life. I can confirm that is fairly accurate. It has 2 OSs on there, Android and Linux. On the Android side of things, you're running Android 11, which does not come with the Google Play Store, as well as on the Linux side, you have an emulation station fronted, which looks pretty polished. So doing a quick tour of the device itself, on the left side, you have a volume rocker, which has been recessed into the body itself. On the right side, you have a power and a reset button, which has also been recessed into the body. And the advantage to that is that you're less likely to press these accidentally when playing games. I have been using this, like I've said, for over a month, and I have not accidentally clicked any of these once. Taking a look at the top of the device now, you have your left shoulder buttons, which are pretty clicky. You have a headphone jack, an OTG port, and this is used for any peripherals you want to plug in, an HDMI port, a DC charging port, and a function button. Now this function button itself can be used differently depending on where you are. If you're booting the device up, this is used to switch to the different OSs, and if you use this in the Android side of things, then this functions as a back button. And to the furthest right, you have your right triggers. Taking a look at the bottom of the device itself, you have 2 speakers, one on the left and the right, and 2 TF card slots. Now, the left one is for your Linux OS, and the right one is for your ROMs. The ROM card in here can be up to 512 gigs, which should be more than enough for most of the games you want to put on there. Finally, taking a look at the bottom of the device here, we have some branding. The Anbernic branding, as well as these 2 rubber pads. I like the fact that Anbernic has moved the branding from the front, which they had in previous models, on the hair. I have a skin on here, but if I were to take this off, you would see the Anbernic logo here. They've moved it, had it in the back before, but they've kept it just to the back, which is nice. It makes the device just look more polished and cleaner. These rubber pads serve pretty well to prevent the device from sliding around. So could do a demo here, putting this on here, and you can see that this thing doesn't move very much. Very nice. If you want to keep your device safe and secure on your desk, you won't have to worry about it sliding around. So finally, taking a look at the front of the device, where you'll be spending most of your time anyway, we're going to take a look at the D-pad and the controls on here. So starting from the left, you have a select button, which is using a rubber membrane, as well as the D-pad. The D-pad itself feels really good. Anbernic has been doing D-pads for a while. I have a couple of Anbernic products, some of which I'm going to review in future episodes on this channel, but it's very similar to the RG353XX, as well as their much older RG350. These D-pads feel roughly the same, I would say. The metal one is a bit stiffer, so this one does feel a little bit stiffer, but it still feels pretty good. I've been using this for a while, like I said, and I've had no problems with it at all. On the right side, there are also the YXBA buttons. These feel pretty good. They don't get stuck or anything like that. They don't feel like they're rubbing up against the frame of the device. And they are slightly bigger buttons than something like, say, on the Retroid Pocket here, which have these tiny dinky buttons, which I'm not a big fan of myself. They're just a little harder to press, but these feel bigger. You won't accidentally press any of these, and I like to travel on them. They feel pretty good overall. I think Anbernic just knows how to do this now. They've been doing it for so long. These button feels great. Now, apparently these are Hall sensing sticks. What that means is that you are less likely to have stick drift over time. Obviously, there's no way to test this right away if there is going to be stick drift, but it's supposed to at least reduce the chances of it happening if it ever happens at all. It's nice to know it's in there. They feel great when you're playing in game. I have had no problems with it on 3D games using it. It feels fairly good. I can't tell the difference. This one here, this Retroid Pocket, does not have Hall sticks, and they feel pretty much the same. You can see these are, the Retroid Pocket has smaller surface area than these, so these feel great to play with. They're not raised particularly high up from the device, but it still feels pretty good. I don't feel like these stick out too far. I had this problem with the RG350 where they just seem to stick out way too far on the device for me. So I think this is a really good compromise where they kind of just recessed it a bit. I like that. The Retro Pocket does this as well, and it works really well. So that is kudos to them for doing that. So just a note that these are all using rubber membranes, and we'll take a look once we open this device up to see what this is. To give you some comparison of this is Xbox controller, and this is not using rubber membranes. So this is using what do you call triggers, I guess, or switches. So it's way more clicky and it's louder. This feels really good. Now, I love Xbox controllers. This is my preference over the PlayStation controllers. But for retro gaming, I think rubber membranes are the way to go. So taking a look at the screen right now. So this, like I mentioned before, is a 3.5-inch IPS screen running at 640 by 480. It looks pretty sharp overall. Really, really good viewing angles, so you won't have any problems here. Again, this is an IPS display, so you can expect this to be a decent panel. So this is obviously a 4:3 aspect ratio, and this is great if for games anything before, I'd say, PS2 generation, where we didn't have that many widescreen, if at all, any widescreen gaming. Then you have these games fitting without any black borders. And I could show you on, for instance, the Retroid Pocket 3 again, which is running the same game, and you can see that it's not using the full screen here. There's these black borders. You don't have this problem. Now we are running Sonic 2 Advance here, which is actually a GBA game, and GBA is actually not 4x3, but it's close enough where you can stretch this out, and it still looks pretty good. In fact, this is probably one of the best GBA emulation devices. It just looks so good on here overall. Taking a look at the brightness of this thing. Now this thing goes pretty dull, so it's pretty good for decent for nighttime gaming. I just wish it would go 1 or 2 notches darker, so you can see how you can still see it playing on the screen. Now I'm going to compare this to the Retroid Pocket 3 again, which is not exactly a fair comparison, but being that they are roughly the same price point anyway, then maybe it is. But here we go. So if I compare this down to, I slide this all the way down to dimmest setting here, you can see that what a difference this is. So this device is way better for nighttime gaming overall. It has way more range when it comes to brightness. It actually goes brighter, and it also goes a lot duller. So here, so these two are both at the brightest settings, and you can see that this just goes ever so slightly brighter, and it just way better for nighttime gaming as well. But again, because this is 4x3, you have these nice, clean looking, no black borders at all, which I really, really like. So when taking apart the device, it should be fairly easy to get in and strip this down. Just be mindful of those ribbon cables. They can rip very easily. Just take your time and you should be fine. In this teardown, I am just going to swap around the buttons, the ABXY buttons, into the Xbox format. Pretty simple mod, but if you're replacing any buttons or replacing the battery, you can use this as a reference as well. So the speakers themselves are not glued in. They slide right out of the frame. You just need to unplug them. And if you can source a replacement and you have a broken speaker, they should be fairly easy to replace. So like the speakers, these are fairly easy to replace. You don't even need to remove the main board itself. You just need to remove a couple of Phillips screws and pop this through. Be sure to remove the cable as well. And you should be good to go. This should be easily user replaceable if you have a broken analog stick. So these just slide out. So this is the part of the teardown where you need to be extremely careful. Be sure to disconnect the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connection on the right there, as well as slide those ribbon cables through very carefully as you pull up the board. So at this point you have access to all the buttons and the membranes of the device, and as you can see, those are easily replaced. If you can source the membranes themselves or D-pad and buttons, then you should be able to replace those yourself. So at this point, you also have access to the left and right panels. You can just slide those right out. It's interesting to note that these are actually made of plastic. So this isn't an all metal belt. It does have those two small panels that are painted to look like metal. It's still really, really well done, actually. You can barely tell that it is made of metal. In fact, I did not notice until this point that it was made of plastic. I assume this is done so that you can get a decent Bluetooth and Wi-Fi signal. So here I use an Xbox controller for reference, just to make sure that I get the ABXY buttons laid out correctly. And that's pretty much it with the teardown. Just be sure to test your controls as well as the screen before you tighten all those screws up. So I'll let the game speak for themselves overall, but I had no problem with any of the systems that I showcased in here. The ones that I didn't show, so things like the PS1, work just fine. I think you start to get into a bit of a performance issue when it comes to uh, the Dreamcast and PSP. Now, I had no problem with any of the Dreamcast games I tried. There was a bit of slowdown in some games, but not noticeable and definitely not unplayable. So would I recommend the RG353M to anyone interested in a retro handheld device? The answer to that is absolutely yes. If you're looking for a device that is portable with great overall performance, that looks and feels premium, and is capable of running both a Linux operating system and Android, then this is a pretty good choice. However, if you're looking for the best overall price performance, or you are interested in easy installation and setup, then this may not be the device for you. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you are interested in more videos like this one, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Also, if you're interested in picking one of these up for yourself, there will be a link in the description below. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.